Good evening, everyone. This is Pradeep, Ambassador of Change from GETI, the Global Education and Training Institute of Lucknow. We are the leading institute for training principals and teachers, not only in India, but all over the world. And we have many in-service and free-service programs. For more information on this, please go to 740-840-1000. Right now, you are on our disruptive education platform provided to us by our mentor, Dr. Sunita Gandhi. And on this platform, we have met with and interacted with more than 1,400 educators from India and all over the world. And this evening, we have for you Mr. R. Gowtham. He is a research scholar from the SRM Institute of Science and Technology in Chennai, Tamil Nadu. He is very fond of book reading. He is a youthful and energetic researcher and is presently pursuing the doctorate of philosophy at the Department of Commerce, College of Science and Humanities, SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Katan Kulahur, I hope I pronounced it correct, Chengalpattu district in Tamil Nadu. He worked at Madras Christian College, Tambaram East, Chennai, as an assistant professor, and in the Department of Commerce. His areas of specialization is teaching, including accounting, finance, and management. He received his education both inside and beyond India, and it is worth noting that he is an alumni of the Madras Christian College in taxation, accounting, finance, management, and entrepreneurship are among his research interests. His scientific interests are influenced by his involvement in a variety of research and development initiatives. At the age of 26, he has published over 30 high-quality research articles in prestigious publications and presented research papers at national and international conferences. He has received numerous awards, including the International Institute of Organized Research Youth Research Award for his outstanding contribution in the field of finance. And it should be noted that at the age of 25, he holds the national record in India Book of Records category maximum research papers written and published by an individual. His work has also been recognized with Best Paper Awards at many national and international conferences organized by a variety of renowned Indian institutions. Mr. R. Gowtham's energy and imaginative mentality has been welcomed as he has been welcomed as a resource person by many renowned institutions throughout India. He has been asked to appear as a resource speaker at many conferences, including the Philippines, the United Kingdom, Japan, and the United States of America. He's a developing young person, is regarded as a mentor and role model by like-minded youngsters and co-workers. And he is continuously motivating people to pursue their goals and achieve success. So thank you, Mr. Gowtham, for being with us. And he will be speaking to us on the nuances of research publications. Thank you, sir, for being with us. And over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Before I start my today's session, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Dr. Sunita Gandhi for taking this wonderful initiative of disruptive education movement, and I also thank our host for today, Pradeep Mal sir, for his such a warm introduction about me. So I'm really happy, and I also like to thank Ms. Roli Tripathi, Head of Training Programs, Global Education and Training Institute, for having given this wonderful opportunity to share my thoughts on nuances in research publications. So, let me share my screen. Yes. Okay. So today this is the topic for discussion. So nuances in research publication. So when we talk about nuances in research publications, there are so many nuances which are there. But what I feel that is of utmost importance, which any researcher should be aware, right? I have taken one positive and another one as a dark side, a light side and a dark side, right? So the light side is nothing but any researchers, they should be aware about what are all the ethical practices that is moving on in the research arena, especially the young researchers who are entering, who are in their process of carrying out their research. They must definitely know what constitute ethical practices in research publications. At the same time, it is also equivalent for them, equally important for them to know how to identify the predatory journals, right? So because these two are very much important. So this is what we are going to discuss today. So when we talk about the first aspect, it's going to be the ethical practice. When it comes to ethical practice, the first thing that comes to our mind is with regard to the authorship. All right, first thing that comes to your mind is with regard to the authorship. So first of all, any researcher should understand who is an author. Right, in the context of research publication, an author is somebody who makes an intellectual contribution, right? Intellectual contribution for your study. So if you find any people who is not making any sort of intellectual contribution to your study, please don't consider them as authors. So what are the criteria for authorship, right? What are all the criteria for authorship? The author, when somebody says I am an author of a research publication, there should be a substantial contribution to the research study that this person has made, right? It could be he could have been drafting the entire intellectual content or revising the intellectual content. He might be approving the final version, right? And he must be capable. Yes, this is what I did, right? When some point of discussions or debate arises, you should be here very helped to say, yes, this is what the work I have done. I will be taking responsibility for my work. So, in other words, I would say he should be simple, right? He should be accountable, right? He should be accountable. So when we talk about this authorship general guidelines, uh, see now always there always conflict arises, right? Normally people will know, right? If sometimes people don't make intellectual contributions, but they are made really helpful in our drafting of our research article. So can we give them the authorship? See, as I already mentioned, authorship means you make some intellectual contribution, but apart from intellectual contributions, there might be other sort of support which might be provided by the individuals. For example, they might have provided you advice, they might have provided you some sort of facility for your research work, right? A departmental oversight, right? Or a financial support, right? Maybe apart from an intellectual contribution, they might have supported you through other means. But now we will have a confusion. So should I add this person as an author for this? Not necessary, but instead nowadays if you see, the journals are asking something like contributors or acknowledge the individual section, where you can always specify this person is a person who provided me support with uh, the research space, all such things. So put them under. If you find any, if you find any person, right, who has not made an intellectual contribution, but still he has supported your research work in some other means, then obviously you can look out for, you can acknowledge their contribution in your research manuscript or research article, in the form of with under the heading contributors or acknowledged individuals. Right, so what are the three kinds of authorship which is not always acceptable? See, these three kinds of authorship we never accept. Right, first one is something called as a ghost authorship. What is mean by a ghost authorship? They might have not contributed, but they would have been included, and vice versa. They other thing, what will happen? They might have contributed, but you failed to include. So that is called as a ghost author. That is also is an unethical practice. So any researcher should be aware about that. Then you have something called as guest authors. Who is a guest author? Right? He might have not made any contribution, but he might have a very good reputation in the market. Right? He has a very good reputation in the research arena. So what you feel, if I add that person name to my paper, right, I can gain more readership, I can gain more authorship. Right, so that is called as a guest author. Right, he might have not contributed to your field of study, to be honest, but he has a very good reputation. So you want to capitalize on that reputation, so you had his name and his details as author. So that is called as guest authorship. So that is also considered as unethical one. Then the third kind of authorship that comes to your mind is your gift authorship. What is a gift authorship? Right, you want to show your utmost gratitude to somebody else who has completely helped you, right? So for that, instead of giving a gift, you give the authorship as a gift. So that is called as a gift author, right? So that is also not acceptable. So, what are all the ways how we can deal with these kinds of misrepresentation? What is meant by misrepresentation? Already I told you, you did not make any contribution, but you allow them to proceed with someone. So that is called as a misrepresenting. So what happens here? The first point that how you can deal with this. See, any journal they have something called as a author guidelines or journal instructions or author guidelines. So before you submit your manuscript, right, before you submit your manuscript, keep reading those instructions first. Right, just read out the journal, what is the instructions they are giving for authors to submit. So if you can understand those instructions, please follow those instructions. So that is one way to which. Another thing what you can do, you can have, always I already mentioned, you can have a column called as contributors or substantial contributions, right, or substantial contributors. So there you can always acknowledge that particular person. But if you, apart from all these things, right, before you seek somebody else, make your expectations clear. Just clearly communicate it to them that I cannot add you as an author for the paper, but if you still want me to add you as a paper, then you have to make an intellectual contribution. Otherwise, clearly speak out the expectations from the outset, and then really talk about how authorship can be handled or not. Because sometimes also the fight will arise with regard to the positions. Who should be the first author? Who should be the second author? Who should be the third author? All such things. To avoid all such problems, please keep in mind, better openly talk what could be the expectations and finally arrive at a conclusion. Right, one of the ways to deal with the one best way to deal with the ghost authorship is again referring the author guidelines of the journal. Right, if you find the author guideship not so popular, sorry, if the ghost authorship is not accepted, please do avoid it. Right, you can always try to gain your reputation by writing more number of research papers. It's definitely it won't happen in a within a night, but as you keep writing, you can always see a progress in your quality of your research. See, I can see my progress in the quality of research right from my paper 1, how I know how that paper 1 was, and I know how now the paper 30 is being. So I can always measure my progress towards my research. So please don't look out for short-term gains by adding people who has a very good reputation but do not made a substantial contribution. Then with regard to gift and ghost authorship, again check the guidelines, because there are still some journals which do accept the gift of ghost authorship, but keep again look out for guidelines of the editor, so the authors, and also the editorial guidelines. If they don't permit, please don't do that. Next comes something called as competing interest. What is mean by competing interest? What is mean by competing interest? Your personal intentions, right? Your personal intentions, you try to reflect on your research paper. That is called as your competing interest. Your individual financial or personal interest, you seek to bring it out in your study, right? In your study. So that means you are looking more biased, right? That means you are looking more biased. So such kind of a thing, we call it as competing interest. This is something even called as dual commitment or competing loyalties. So how this competing interest can happen? It can happen in two ways. One either as a direct and another one as indirect, right? Direct or indirect, direct or indirect, right? Why? How the competing interest happens directly? For example, you might be employed in that particular company, or you might be employed in that particular field. Though the field is not performing better, but since you are working, you try to show as if it is everything doing well. So such kind of competing interest, it can apply, it can happen either because of your employment or you own the stock ownership, grants or patents, all those things, right? Then coming back to indirect, right? Indirectly, how this can happen? It can happen through the form of consulting agencies or sponsorship organization, right? All systems, right? Some organization will be financing your research, so you cannot write against them. Though the results shows something contradictory, you still try to hide your materialistic facts, right? So that is your that is going to be your competing interest, right? So competing interest can also happen in the nature of academic, like academic competition or personal relationship or intellectual passions. It can always happen, right? It can always happen even through that means, right? So that is the competing interest. So keep these points well in mind. So your conflicts can either be potential or even actual. So what is required here is only one thing, right? Whether person's association with any particular company, it is biasing or it is affecting his ability to carry out the research paper or not, right? Or later, even so, maybe after publishing a research manuscript or maybe after publishing a research article, you find, right, it is like making the reader feeling deceived. He is manipulated. You try to give something which is manipulating the reader, then that is also the competing interest. So better fully disclose the relationship. How can we deal with it, right? There is nothing wrong with just so now journals are asking something called as conflict of interest, right? So better we establish, right? There is always a competing interest in this paper, and inform it to the editors also. So it is the editor, he will take into the considerations, right, with regard to the competing interest. So how we can deal with these kinds of competing interest problems in our research ethics? First, as I already told you, state openly. See, there is always a competing interest. I belong to this institution, so I cannot, or I belong to this industry, so I cannot write something against this industry. All right, better disclose that. Similarly, it's not only that the researchers have to disclose, it is also equivalently important for reviewers to say what to say. They should also be unbiased, right? Sometimes what will happen, I am the reviewer. I may not like a one particular policy, right? I may not like the one kind of particular policy which is introduced by the government. But when to my desk there comes a paper which advocates the positives of that particular policy. So now, automatically what is happening? I am having a competing interest. I don't like this policy, but before me there is some paper which talks about the pros of that particular policy. All right. So then that bias. Now I should also say I cannot do this because This is completely against my philosophy. You give it to some other reviewer. So even the reviewers are also required to declare the competing interest, right? So while you are doing this in your paper itself, make a very clear declaration with regard to the funding agencies, especially again competing interest can happen in case of funding agencies. So if there are any funding agencies, just keep them, state explicitly these are all the funding agencies which is supporting my research work. So that may already be established, right? Then the next important aspect that comes to into practice when we talk about ethical practices is plagiarism. What is plagiarism? You desperately copy somebody else's idea and show it as it is yours. So plagiarism can take place in n number of forms like data, words and phrases, ideas and concepts. It can happen in any variety, right? It can happen in any variety, but if you still miss to cite or properly acknowledge, it is still constituting a plagiarism, right? So better this again, this plagiarism can happen either intentionally or unintentionally. You can ask me, sir, how it is happening unintentionally? Say, for example, you would be crediting, but you don't know the proper way of crediting that particular work, right? You don't know the proper way of crediting that particular work, then that is called as unintentional. And intentionally you copy and desperately you want to show something as it is yours, that is intentional. So both are wrong. So what we can do, how we can deal with this plagiarism issues? First one is a literal copying. You control C, control V, control C, control V. That is called as literal copying. So when you are copying somebody else's idea. So keep a track of the sources from where you get it. Properly acknowledge and cite that paper. If you are taking the entire sentence and putting it in your research paper, make sure you put them under the quotation marks, right? Then substantial copying. What is mean by substantial copying? Right? What is mean by substantial copying? You copying only part of the paper or part concept, right? Just a half. Some other things you write on your. Then that is called as a substantial copying, right? Again, one only solution to deal with plagiarism is to cite your original source. Then comes the very important aspect which people even often talks about, the paraphrasing. They say if you do paraphrasing, it is ethical, it won't constitute the plagiarism. See, even in paraphrasing, there are two kinds of paraphrasing. One is an ethical paraphrasing, another one is an unethical paraphrasing. What is ethical paraphrasing? Ethical paraphrasing means you write in your own words. See, first of all, you must understand one thing. Even though you paraphrase, you write it in your own words, but it is not your own idea, right? I can write in my own words. I can see some, I can read some article, right? I can rewrite in my own words, but still you have to remember one point. This is not, this is not your original idea. You are still writing the same thing, but not exactly like that. You are just rephrasing, right? So that is paraphrasing. So even though you paraphrase, even though you write in your own words, it is not your own idea. So you again have to give the acknowledgement, even though you do it right. So in that case, paraphrasing is ethical. If you properly cite the source, then that is ethical paraphrase. If you don't properly cite the proper source, then that is called as an unethical paraphrasing. Right? Then there is also another kind of plagiarism which is there, which is called as a text recycling. What is text recycling? First sentence from paragraph 1, second sentence from paragraph 2, third sentence from paragraph 3, and jumbling 132. That is called as text recycling, right? So that is also should be avoided. Whatever you do, you have to always make sure that the source is referred successfully, right? So that is very much important. The next kind of ethical issue that happens in your research publications is simultaneous publication. What is simultaneous publication? I have only one paper, right? I have only one research manuscript, but I am simultaneously submitting it to two different journals. That is called a simultaneous submission. That is should also be critically be avoided, right? So simultaneous publication can happen in the form of a duplicate publication or multiple publication, whatever it may be. Both are wrong. Both are wrong because it will make the results inappropriate and it will account for double count. But in certain clinical research, there is always acceptance of certain duplicated work, all right, because in the certain guidelines. Because, and if that is there, just cross check with that particular guideline, and if they accept duplicate work, go for it. But always remember, there is always a rule of thumb, which is your publication must be original. It should not be submitted to any other house of publication. So that is very much important, right? Right. So if you find any related papers at the time of submission, disclose some. These are all the publications which are equally related to your related papers, right? The paper you are submitting. So how to deal with simultaneous publication? I already told you. Avoid submitting one paper simultaneously at two different journals. Wait, if you have submitted your paper to one journal, wait till until they give you a review. Right? If you find right they are not replying you in often time, just put a mail to them stating that if you are not going to give me a decision before such, I am going to withdraw your manuscript. You then mail them about the withdraw the manuscript, and then you submit it for somebody else, right? Then duplicate submission, all right. What is the way to deal with it? Please avoid publishing a previously published paper. Please avoid doing that. And also, please don't submit the same paper again and again, because research means you have to do something new, right? You have to come up with something new, and that won't be having any impact. Always provide full disclosure about your previous submission. You can always do that, right? You presented this in some other conferences, and then I have modified, I'm submitting. So you can always give such details as well, right? If you are doing a duplication, which it is happening in the form of a paraphrasing or text reselling, right? That's I already told you. If it is a paraphrasing, put a reference, article, cite the source. If it is a text recycling where you feel, sir, I cannot do anything, I can just have to write whatever it is that is there, right? Then that is text recycling. So what I would like to suggest you all in that case, put them in the quotes, right? Put them in the within the quotation marks, right? Put them within the quotation mark. Even if it's going to be one full paragraph and you want to put it in the form of a paragraphs, you can always do that, right? Translation paper. Now you will also ask, sir, one paper is written in Hindi or in Malayalam or in Tamil. I want to translate it in English. Will that still constitute ethical thing, ethical value? Will it constitute as an ethical practice? In that case, if you are looking for going for a translation, better always consult with the publisher. Just check out with the publisher whether the translation is allowed as per their guidelines. If they say yes, proceed. If they say no, withdraw. Then comes research fraud. What is a research fraud? You publish data or conclusions which has not at all happened, right? You would have not conducted the experiment, you would have not made any observation, but you would be doing data manipulation and publish data or conclusions. So that is called as a research fraud. So in research fraud, there are two types. One is called as fabrication, another one is called as falsification. Alright, fabrication means you make up the research data and show as if everything is coming perfectly. Right, that is called as research fraud. What is falsification? You manipulate the research material, data, equipment, or you omit certain data, right? And you don't present the result accurately. All those things is called as a falsification. So both are wrong, to be honest. See, with regard to manipulation, in sciences, manipulation is still allowed, but that is allowed only for improving your clarity. Right? That is allowed only for improving the clarity, but not for manipulating or giving something a beautiful result, right? For that purpose you cannot do manipulation of images. The only thing that you can do, you can improve the quality, just to improve the clarity of your results, to improve the clarity of your image you can manipulate, but not for several other reasons. And now if you find many journals, they are asking you for raw data. You say you collected primary data, you will give that data also, right? Nowadays I know many journals which is asking even the raw data, because what is happening, right? They are again reused, right? The same data they are just getting reused, they are just changing the questions and they are doing false publications. So that is also should be avoided, right? With regard to data, you should never tamper, right? Meticulous data, right? You should be able to provide the data whenever editor asks for. If editor asks for your data, just provide with them, right? And always understand the publisher's policy. Say for example, sir, for improving the quality, I want just to manipulate the data image, then consult with the publisher first whether as per the guideline image manipulations are acceptable. If they say if it is acceptable, then report it to the publication before submitting your paper, right? So review for any images that is there. Make sure you also give a proper source to the original data. Then there is another kind of a practice which is unethical in research, which is called as a salami slicing. Right? What is called as salami slicing? You have only one paper, you have only data. What you do, you split it and you slice it into different paper. Only one paper, but you one meaningful paper, you convert it into three different paper. That is called as what elsewhere calls it as salami slicing, which is also a part of a duplicated publication. Slices will disrupt your hypothesis, right? All right. If you submit it as a full paper, it would have given you a very beautiful results. You might have published it very well, right? You might have gained it because you sliced for the number of count. There are chances that it will make your study meaningless. Why salami slicing is considered as unethical? Why it is an unethical one? Right? Because it distorts your literature, right? It distorts your literature. It also we waste the reader's time, because anyhow the fabricated, sorry, or the divided results, it's not going to give anything new to the reader, so it wastes even the reader time as well as the editor time. Scientific database, it's used the scientific database. And uncorrelated your results, if you see, it won't be correlated. There should be some sort of logic and connection with your results, but this will make uncorrelated ones. So how can we deal with salami slicing? Please do not break up the data, or yes, please do not break up the data of your single study into two or three. That is always not accepted. Please be transparent in your results, right? That is what research is all about, right? That is what research is all about, right? So you cannot show something which you want. Your personalized bias, it should not interfere, right? It should not interfere in your domain. It should not interfere in your results, right? So which means you cannot even publish something already published article, those things as well, right? You cannot do that as well. So why ethical publishing is required for young buddies? Why ethical publishing is required for young buddies? Ensure there is a scientific progress, because if you are ethical in your research practices, it ensures there is a proper scientific progress for you. It protects lives and plants, especially in biological and zoological sciences, right? It promotes an ethical behavior, and when you are so much ethical, when you are so scientific, it will automatically improve your reputation in the market, right? It will automatically increase your reputation in the market. So this is the first part. The second part is all about tricks to identify cloned and predatory journals. So first, let's understand what is a predatory journal. See, these are the journals which are there just with an intention of making money. They want to create some fake website, and they want to provide some false information, and loot more money and exploit your intellectual contribution, right? So that is the predatory journals. So what are the characteristics of these journals? It is fast. Normally, the predatory journals are false or misleading information, which means, in put it in very simple terms, they don't give you the proper journal details or the true information. Right? There are already certain well-established editorial and publication practices in the industry, and these journals move opposite direction. Right? They don't follow the editorial and publication practices. You can find there is lack of transparency, there is an aggressive marketing to induce you, right? There is always an aggressive marketing to induce you to go for such paper, and obviously the intention is to deceive you, to cheat you. So these are the some of the characteristics of predatory journals. So how can we identify these kinds of predatory journals, or what you call it as a cloned journals? First, look out for volume number and issue number, which is very much important. So here you have to look out for four information. In which year the journal was formed. Say for example, if the journal is started in 2020-22, this year it will be the volume 1. So when you find some journal which is present in 1960, by now their volume number should be 52. Right? By now the volume number should be 52. So please look out for your volume number and the frequency of publication. Why frequency of publication? It is directly related to your issue number. Say for example, you say the frequency of publication is biannual. Biannual means which means they can have only two issues. All right, in 1 year they can have only two issues. They cannot have more than two issues. So always look out for these details. So this is one example of a thing. See, they said this is the triannual, but triannual means once in a year they'll publish only 3 times. But you could find so many issues coming up. Totally, they have come up to 12 issues. Yeah, so you can always do that. The second way through which you can look upon is your ISSN number. Always, you can always go to the ISSN portal and verify your ISSN number. That is always a best choice to do that. Just check the medium also, whether it is a print journal or an online journal. If it is a purely print journal, they cannot publish the papers online. Please don't fall prey for it. So please check even the publisher detail. The third trick to identify the predatory journals is the editorial board. All right. Sometimes what happen here, even without the knowledge of the reputed persons, sometimes what happening, people are using their names, right, without their knowledge. They are putting some popular people's name as the editorial board, right? So, which the concerned editorial board member, he may not be aware, right? He may not also be aware about that he has been put as a editorial board member in some journal. So what you can do in that case, see, if they are well reputed persons, right? If they are well reputed person, definitely they will have a public profile, right? They will have a public profile. Just cross verify, because in that public profile they would have specified the in which are all the journals they are serving as a editorial board member. So in that case, you can go to the public profile and check out whether they are given the journal name, right? That's it. So check out even in, you can check even in journal website and indexing. The next important thing which you have to look upon is contact information, right? What is the contact information? See, if it is a predatory journal, no, most probably they will have contact details like this, right? They will have contact details like this. What can I say with regard to this thing? They will say, for example, editor at gmail.com. See, these kinds of email ID, right? These kinds of email ID you and I can create, right? These kinds of email ID you and I can create, not editor for ijrcc at gmail.com. This and all you and I can create. No need for somebody to do that. So there will be improper address for communication. right? There will be some improper address for communication. So please check out for whether there is proper address for communication for the concerned editors, right? Check out the email addresses, right? Some journals, no, they provide even the contact numbers. See, provide these and all, one of the criteria through which you can increase the authenticity of a particular journal. And even I have seen some journals where they are even also the postal address. So if you find something which is fully complete, trustworthy. If you find something like editor ijrcc at gmail.com, these things are unethical, right? This and that you and I can go to Gmail and create. So please look out for your contact information as well. Then medium and format, which I already told you. Check out whether it is a print journal. Print journal means, kindly remember, they cannot publish online. If it is an online journal, well and good. Some journals have both print as well as online. So check out for that. Then look out for open access or paid one. So you can also check out these things. So if you find any journal which is a print one, but you find it is coming in, it is getting displayed online, then obviously it is a thing. It is a predatory one. The next important thing which you have to keenly focus upon is the peer review process. Very, very important, right? Check whether there is a single blind review, double blind review, or open review. What is a single blind review? See, author does not know who is the reviewer, but the reviewer knows who is the author. That is called as a single blind review. What is a double blind review? Author does not know who is a reviewer, and reviewer does not know who is an author. That is called as a double blind review. What is an open review? Open review is something like it is open for all, right? It is open for all. Anyone can review your manuscript. That is an open review. So always check in that particular journal, right? Always check in that particular journal whether it is following a single review, a single peer review, or double blind or open review process. Then look out for time for your first review decision. How many days they are taking to communicate the very first decision? See, normally first review decision it can last up to a maximum of 3 months, nothing more than that, or maximum of 4 months. But if it is crossing more than that, please do avoid such kind of journal. And how many, normally if you see, review time will be long, time for revision will be short, right? So look out for how many days they are giving you the time for revision, how much time they are taking for acceptance division. All these things please look out when you are searching for a particular journal. And another important thing, check out the journal's reviewer guidelines, right? Whether, say for example, it is a management journal or a botanical journal, then the reviewer team should have majority of the people from botany domain or management domain, right? So you cannot have in the management journal people with botany people or zoology people or sciences people as reviewers, and vice versa. In science journals, you cannot have management people or other people as your reviewers. So please look out for that as well. Then the next trick that we are going to see is manuscript handling mechanism. So normally if you take many elsewhere journals and all, when you submit your paper online, they will always assign something called as manuscript number. They will give you something called as a manuscript number. So please keep an eye on that, right? Then whether there is proper tracking system that is available, right? You can always track what is the current status. And if you see OJS and the open journal systems, there is something called as open journal system. So there it provides you, it will show you whether it is in the pre-printing stage or it is in the production stage, your manuscript. So just ensure there is a proper tracking system of manuscript for your submission. Then, as I already told you, check out for how many days they are taking or how many months they are taking for publish your paper online, or how many days they are taking you for print. So this is always kept in mind. Then, with regard to communication, right, these journals often use false name or aliases. Often they use some reputed journal's name, or some journal name which is sounding interesting, all right? Those things they will take upon. Please do avoid that. Please do avoid such kind of a thing. And most probably, if you see, they will have an improper introduction and conclusion. There won't be any transparency in the communication. Too much of spelling or grammar errors. Polite and timely communication won't be there. They won't respond to your queries. All these are indicators of a cloned journal. All these are indicators for a cloned journal. So please be aware about these points. Next important trick that we have to look upon is journal scope, title, and content. So again, I will tell you, just check whether author guidelines copied or original. It is clear or unclear. See, sometimes journal will have the name wise aquatic sciences, but they will publish paper from commerce, management, history, philosophy, something which is not falling beyond the scope. Right? So check always whether the scope and title matches. Then look out for registration number, whether they have a proper ISSN number, do they have a proper DOI number, right? Any other official number they have, kindly look out for these things, and also check the authenticity of these numbers. That is also very much important. Then look out for publication ethics and guidelines, right? Whether ethical guidelines for publication is mentioned in their website or not, right? If it is a biological journal where you are involving organism testing, whether any guidelines is given for such biomedical journals, right? Statement regarding conflict of interest, which I taught you, right? Competing interest, that should be there, right? Whether that particular journal is a member of COPE, right? Ethical board, what is the level of plagiarism they are accepting for the journal. See, all these things you can easily, through these things you can easily bifurcate whether this is a original or a cloned one, right? Then look out for cross reference, ISO number, is there false impact factor, uh, who is that impact factor agency, the agency which is providing the impact factors authenticate or not. Please look out for that. Website visibility, very much important nowadays. All the websites should be HTTPS, right? HTTPS. So just check out whether the website is security encrypted or coded. If you face any sort of connectivity issues often, then please don't trust the journal, and look out for the engine database. Check out whether all links are functional, right? Other considerations, check out whether all the links which they provide is functioning. Is it taking you to any false website? Whether too much of advertisement, too much of copyrighted materials are used. Look out for all these things, right? If you are going to use logos, then there should be proper communication, proper rights should have been obtained. Whether such they are using the Scopus logo, Web of Science logo, Clarivate Analytics logo, Elsevier logo, or it's the use of logos is authorized. Whether there is so much of spelling mistake, whether it is misleading, what is their privacy policy, what is their terms of use. Look out for all these things. Then the next trick which you have to focus upon is your author invitation. Author invitation. How they are inviting the artists, whether to post or through email or through public recruitment, right? If you find any of the author invitation emails coming in spam, please avoid them. Please avoid it. Whether the identity of the email recipient is revealed or not, content is copied or not, look out for all these things. The next trick which you have to focus upon is your publication fee. Whether they are charging publication fee, no fee, well and good. Is there any hidden fees or disguised fees which they are trying to charge you? Are they paying you any royalty? See, some journals have something called as submission charges and publication charges. So most probably, if any journals accept submission charges, they don't charge you APC or publication charges. But some journals they do have both submission as well as APC. So please look out for that. Whether any other charges which is not countable, they are not giving you the proper reason for charging such kind of fees. Please avoid such journals. Next, look out for abstract and indexing, right? Abstract deposits, right? Are they properly, whether the abstracts are properly indexing, getting indexed in the proper indexing database, whether it has a full text database, what is their policy with regard to digital preservation, are they maintaining for the lifetime or only for a certain period of time? Look out for all those things. Then published papers, you can also evaluate a journals by the papers which is already published over. I saw one journal, it was horrible. It was completely horrible. So much of spelling errors, grammar errors, right? But by getting just 2000, 3000, they are just publishing that, right? Poor, I can say poorly written, published paper. I was thinking, oh my god, right? So look out for editorial errors, whether there is any serious plagiarism issues, all those things. So other malpractices, there's always chances of theft of copyrighted materials, false use of copyrighted materials. Are they desperately using some other publisher's name? Look out for all these things. So these are the tricks which you can use to identify a predatory journal. There are also some factors which indicates which is the journals which are currently indexing. Most probably they might be removed in the future. Alright, you could find this rapid increase in number of papers. See, this is one screenshot of a paper which I have taken from the Scopus database. All the years you see 21 documents, 6 documents, 4 documents, 14 documents, but suddenly in 2021 you could find 3182 documents. Oh my god, which means on an average in a month they are publishing 300 papers, which means 100% sure these kinds of journals will be removed. Then overriding the scope of journal, this is again another journal where I would say this is a journal which is relating to the yoga and yogic sciences, but they are publishing something related to inventory management, big data analytics. So with this, I would conclude my today's session. So with regard to clone journals, I will say as long as there is a temptation for rapid publication, these kinds of predatory journals continues to exist. Invest your time, prosper, and progress. So these are some of the references. So with this, I would like to conclude today's session, and thank you so much to Global Education and Training Institute for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, sir, for that very informative talk on digital research and uh, a great guide for people who are going into research work to be very well aware of where to publish your work and not to publish your work. Thank you so much, sir. And good evening, everybody. Before we leave, I request you to watch our detox from our disruptive literacy movement by Global Dream, which has been an initiative by Dr. Sunita Gandhi since 2014. And this is to ensure everyone's participation as a people's movement in ensuring India's numeracy and literacy. And each one teach one. And those of us who can afford to teach more than one should be doing so to create as far as possible a playing field for everybody. And we have several talks on this every day. So for more information on the talks that you would like to tune into, please go to 7408401000. Thank you, everybody. Good evening and goodbye. See you again tomorrow. And thank you, Mr. Gowtham, for that talk today on nuances of research publications. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.